Hi there, Mr. Mayo here with another practice tip. Today we're going to talk about slow versus fast in terms of how we play. We live in a society where speed is everything. People speed like crazy on the roads. Most of the games we play are about how fast we can do something. We often get frustrated when something takes a long time to complete or when something's not quite working right. But often rushing through things creates problems. When you speed, you're more likely to be in a car crash, make an error, or get a ticket. In our youth, we often raced one another to see who could be the first one done with an assignment in school, and then when grades would come out, we wouldn't be so happy with the outcome. What we didn't realize is if we just slowed down our pace, we could probably get better grades. And the same is true with music. Often when we're in the learning process, we don't take the time necessary to process the information. We're more concerned with getting a certain amount of practice time in, meeting a due date, or just getting a practice session over with. But what matters is the outcome and the progress that we make. How does something sound in the end? We have to be more concerned with a process on how we create accuracy. It's important to realize that in order to learn things faster, you must first learn them slower. You have to develop the neural connections and signals to your muscles in order to engrave them in your memory. By going fast at the start, you rush through the technique and you lose the ability to exactly figure out what it is you are doing. Now, disclaimer, there's a lot of different beliefs about this. What just about everyone agrees on is when you're first learning a piece, you should keep it slow while you're learning the notes and rhythms. Then continue to keep it somewhat slow when working on musicality, articulation, tone, nuance, and other musical aspects. There's some people who believe that you should then just jump up to tempo. Then a lot of these people wonder why it doesn't always work for them. And here's what they don't understand. There's a part of our brain called the cerebellum. It's a non-judgmental part of the brain that's responsible for muscle coordination. It's the part of the brain that looks at repetitive activity and assumes that any repetitive activity we're doing is being repeated because we are trying to make it automatic. A lot of people like to call this muscle memory, but it's actually technically known as procedural memory. Now, the cerebellum doesn't look at whether or not we're playing something correctly or incorrectly. It autonomizes whatever we play either way. When we practice something incorrectly or too fast, it autonomizes it. That means that when we make errors, our brains make those errors part of our habits. It can make it very difficult to fix it as a musician. When learning music, it can take the cerebellum a matter of minutes to weeks to autonomize and develop something correctly. The determining factor is the actions that have been autonomized in the past. Our brains access note groupings and chunks or cells. This is known as recall. The idea is that we retrieve notes or groupings of notes based on the associations with the notes and groupings around them. It's known as chaining. Much of what we're able to play correctly is based on the cells and the development that we've had in the past, playing exercises, scales, arpeggio, and other aspects to improve our musicianship. We have to develop these chunks in order to later rapidly improve upon music. It is likely that the better developed these cells are, the less time it will take for a certain part of the music to become developed. This is why some people have success when they actually jump tempo. It's because the cells in the music that they've already developed in the past allow them to skip over the gradual speed up process. In other words, it's extremely important in music to develop literature and exercises in an order that will assist your future musicianship. There's a reason why the top musicians always practice their fundamentals, exercises, scales, and arpeggios. It's so that way they can retain and develop cell note groupings that they've created in the past to enhance their future. As a young musician, you usually don't have these cell note groupings engraved unless you progressively played exercises, scales, and other fundamentals over a long period of time. Notice I mentioned that that's progressive. What that means is you start at one level and you build from there. You don't just jump to the hard stuff right off the bat. Now, I'm not a music psychologist. Everything I just talked about, I've either learned reading books, reading research articles, or have learned through instruction that I've been in personally in a class. I'm not an expert on this, but I have seen this work through my students and with myself. So the main question, I guess, would lie in what do we do after we have the accuracy there at a slow tempo? We have to identify the parts of the piece that are challenging and work on developing those to the desired tempo of the piece. Chances are you can play the easier parts of the piece faster than the harder parts in association with your accuracy. What you need to do is build on the parts that give you problems. Pick a problem spot, find the fastest tempo that you can play that section at with 100% accuracy in notes, rhythms, articulation, and musicality. Play it a few times, bump up the metronome a few beats, and play it again. If you play it correctly, practice it a few more times at that tempo to ensure that the accuracy level still is 100%. If it stays accurate, continue to bump it up a few beats per minute until you have a problem or you reach your desired tempo. If you have a problem with it, bump it back down and identify precisely where the issue lies. Like we discussed in the fundamentals video, find exercises or create exercises to improve your precise aspects of your music that are giving you problems. If you developed good fundamentals, it's likely that you'll notice that you can progress through developing your sections of your music up to speed within a matter of a few days. If not, it could take several weeks or months to develop. So it's so important that you focus on the fundamentals. Here are some things to be mindful of when it comes to working on things slowly and developing them up to tempo. We have to be mindful of what moves. Our fingers, our tongues, our muscles associated with air, hands for percussionists. Often errors occur due to not being aware of these muscles and how they move in relation to one another. You have to break things down into achievable chunks. Starting out, these chunks might just be a measure or two. Once they solidify, it's likely to become a few more measures or even a phrase. More experienced musicians might even look at a phrase as their chunk. It really depends on the difficulty of the music and the experience of the musician playing. Keep your mind actively engaged. You have to think about what you're playing, what's coming up, how you can eliminate the mistakes that are coming up as well. The key is not to overthink. It's just about keeping an awareness. I've seen many fine musicians who can play rapid passages, take things like a chorale, meaning super slow, and focusing on all the aspects, in particular intonation. They take things slower just to make sure they have the accuracy. So it's a good idea to go back and check things at a slower speed periodically. If you're near performance, often playing the parts slowly will help your mind slow down and focus on the accuracy. Play it a few times slowly and then play it once up to speed. You'll likely notice that accuracy is improved. This only works if you took the time to properly learn the piece. Hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to subscribe for more videos. Be safe and go practice.